Alright, so let's try again. You know, we went to the beach, we went to the village, both times, did not end so well. You know what they say, third time's the charm. Let's go to the castle. What can go wrong? So you want to go to the castle? Good idea. All decent fairy tales tend to conclude in castles once they're beleaguered, but upon heroines are finally able to wed the handsome princes they once dreamed of. Beleaguered. Beleaguered? Did I say that right? Beleaguered? Beleaguered of legends? Or, anyway. Why bother trying your luck of the shore, which may very well be deserted, or the village, which will be full of dirty, barefoot peasants? It is far better to skip the suffering and go straight to the grand finale. You know, just go straight to the final boss. That is very astute of you. I did not realize you had it in you to be so mercenary. I can only wonder what you will uncover during your moonlight meanderings. The night is far from over, and your adventures are only just beginning. I hope only that you've brushed up on your courtesies. They might come in handy when one is interacting with a sovereign. Royals can be temperamental after all. If you fail to treat them with the requisite amount of respect, you may come to regret it. You follow the path which leads to the castle, supporting yourself on weary, aching legs which feel ready, at a moment's notice, to detach from your hips. You're a little more than the wisp of a girl, but you've been running for so very long, and your feet are so very numb. You feel like a great lumbering thing, clumsy and ungainly. The soles of your feet are screaming at you. You need to lie down, and quickly. You only hope as you continue to run that you'll find a spare room available for you in the castle. You do not know what exactly will await you at the castle, but you have visions, as you run, of a vast, opulent dwelling. Opulent? Opulent. This dwelling will surely be full of finely furnished rooms in which you might rest your weary head. There must also be a king and a queen inside this castle, you ponder, who will be kind and wise, and what of their children? What of a princess? Excuse me, princess. Very good castles, or every good castle rather, must possess a princess who will take pity on you and your plight. You can imagine the face of this generous princess with ease, thanks to the fairy tales you read in abundance as a small child. The princess will be fair of hair and blue of eye, with soft pink lips pursed with rosebuds. Her limbs will be slender, her hands dainty and unsullied from physical labor, and her sensibilities will be sweeter than marzipan. She will be kind to you and compassionate, just like an older sister. You do not know what older sisters are like, though, or younger sisters for that matter. You are only guessing. You're just an only child. You're not a complete fool, however, despite your tendency to daydream, and you do have a few reservations. Monarchs do not, as you know from Varash's reading, have the best track record when it comes to caring for peasantry. You know, despite what you see in modern movies and books and whatnot, you know, it's like, it's always, especially in anime, right? It's like, oh yes, the great nobles will save the world and everything. They'll protect the kingdom. But actually, most of them were assholes. they would just like roll on to peasant farms and just like demand, you know, taxes and stuff and whatever. And they don't really care about the people they're supposed to protect. Usually, anyway, because there's no incentive to, right? Back in the day, you know, there was no point. It was all about, you know, politics and like, you know, keeping control of your lands. You know, as far as I've read anyway. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure. But it seems like that's the case. You know, it was a brutal time. Anyway, was there not a very famous queen who once said, with a cavalier wave of her hand, that the hungry peasants in her kingdom should not content themselves with cake if bread was not an option? I guess, let them eat cake. Which I believe is kind of a myth. I don't think it was actually said. I don't think. It was just kind of like a general sentiment, I guess. It's kind of like made itself like made itself into like some kind of a bit of a meme actually. But I don't think anyone actually said that. It was often attributed to what's her name? I only remember this because of Fate Go, but What's her name again? I forgot. I forgot her name though. But you know, the princess from Fate Go. Let them eat cake. Marie Antoinette. Yeah, Marie Antoinette. You know, during the French Revolution or whatever. But I don't think she actually said that, as far as I know. I could be wrong though. You know, I could be wrong about many things, by the way. I always say things as if I'm confident they're a fact, but turns out I'm just completely wrong. So, you know, take what I always say with a grain of salt. You think this might be a misquote, but the point still stands. Oh, as I was saying, I didn't read the part. The royals are supposed to grant their subjects succor in their time of need. This does not always happen, you know. Noblesse oblige, or whatever. What's it called? Noblesse oblige? Anyway. In fact, it very rarely happens. Kings and queens and princesses and princes are just people at the end of the day, and they're subject to the same caprices that all humans are. They can also be careless and selfish and inconsiderate. There's no guarantee that this mythical princess of your imagination will help you. Why, there's no guarantee that this mythical princess exists at all. Still, you must try. It is this hope which keeps you going. You continue to run to the castle. It takes some time before you finally emerge from the woods, but finally you do it. How much time, you ask? I cannot answer that. Did it not say that time had begun to lose all its meaning? The forest is behind you now, at least, and all the awful nightmares which dwelt within it. It is still cold, though, and foggy, and very, very dark. The sun has yet to rise. You can see the moon more clearly now, though, as it hangs above your head, round as any pearl or orb or crystal ball. The moonlight shines down upon the castle, which looms in front of you like a cliffside. The stone edifice of the building is imposing, and it drowns you in shadows darker than the depths of the deepest ocean. The castle is not all dark, though, not like the night sky above it. When you crane your head, you can see that there are lights flickering within, and the narrow, slitted windows. It would appear that somebody is home. The king and queen, perhaps. What of their servants? What, perhaps, more pressingly, of their guards? You know, you just gotta sneak past them, like in Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. You have expect that as you stand there, that armored knights will accost you for daring to approach the castle of king and queen so-and-so. Do you not know your place, foolish peasant girl with the dirty skirt? Be God with you. You are not, of course, a peasant. Your family is a wealthy one, or rather they were, before your father made a series of poor financial decisions. Okay, alright. So that's what happened. I was wondering, you know, why she's so, I don't know, like, yeah, she was like sent away, and it's like she's not, I mean, she's come from an elite family and everything, but she doesn't have a good life? I don't know. You do not look like a young lady right now, though, with your dirty face and your dirty skirt, which is torn at the hem. If any guards were to take you for a vagrant, it would not be surprising. But though you stand there dithering, your filthy fingers hooked in front of your filthy skirt, you do not hear any cries. Nobody sounds the alarm. Lights might be on inside the castle, but there's nobody outside of its perimeter standing sentry. There's nobody to impede your entry, and the elaborate iron gates were set into the vast stone walls about the castle's exterior are open, just a crack. It would be a trivial matter to slip inside. There's nobody to stop you. Why are you trembling now, you silly thing? You come so very far, it would be an act of foolishness to turn around now. Go on, go. You inhale, perhaps in an attempt to screw up your courage, which has at long last begun to fail you. And then, you step forwards. You slide between the wrought iron gates, as stealthy and as secretive as a thief, then cross a path which leads up to the tall, imposing structure. The domed doorway, which leads into the castle itself, hewn from stone, is closed, but at the push of your palm, it swings inwards. The door creaks alarmingly as it opens, the sound loud enough to split the silence like a thunderclap. You inhale at this and glance around, your eyes darting hither and thither. Thither? I can't say the word. Hither and thither. Thither. If there are any guards posted about the castle's grounds, they should have all been alerted by that sound. Will they come for you at long last? What happens should they catch you? Will they throw you into the dungeons? That does not sound like a pleasant way to spend a night. At least you would have a roof over your head, though, and you would not have to keep walking. Your feet really do ache. You stand there for an indeterminate amount of time, your heart pounding, a panicked, irregular rhythm in the base of your throat. But no matter how much time elapses, no guards come. You're thankful for your good luck, though it does make you wonder, where is everybody? Why, it is almost as if all the people in the world have disappeared. Could you be the very last human left alive? You frown, then press your palm back against the door. You push less cautiously this time, heedless of the loud sound which splits the silence. There's no point worrying about the guards, not when they might very well be non-existent. Again, another place where it's abandoned, just like the village. Is there also a plague here? I don't know. Which, by the way, I don't know if I already mentioned it. The village having a plague and everything does tie in with the mermaid story. She did mention she had a friend from the village. And, well, now we know the reason why she disappeared, I guess. It's because of the plague, You enter the castle secured, you then take a step forwards. The door swings shut behind you, and the resultant slam makes you jump. You did not expect it. Your heart knocks against your ribs, and with wild eyes, you glance about. You're standing in a vast entrance hall made of stone, which splits off into any number of passages. At the very end of the hall, meanwhile, there's a large, elaborate staircase, one which seems to extend to the heavens themselves. It is dark inside the hall, but there are numerous torches, set in sconces in the stone wall which are aflame. They offer some relief from the shadows. You can hear the faint sound of the wind outdoors as it moans against the castle's impervious walls, but you cannot hear any footsteps. You cannot hear any voices. You cannot, more importantly, hear any people. Maybe the castle is empty. If that's the case, though, then who lit these torches? It is a curious conundrum. You muster up what remains of your courage, then cry out, addressing the empty hall in a timorous voice which fails to properly fill up the space. Or timorous? Hello, you say. Hello there. General Kenobi. No, hello, you say, your eyes wide. Is anybody there? Your voice echoes through the vast, empty hall, but it is met yet again with silence. You cannot say you're too surprised, but it is somewhat disappointing. Not one to be deterred, you try again, and again, your voice growing louder with each subsequent attempt. No matter how loud your voice, however, it fails to reach any ears. If anybody is here, they do not seem to be particularly sociable. That, or perhaps they simply cannot hear you. Could they be in another room? Yes, that must be it. You'll never find that pretty fairy-tale princess of your imagination you stand idle, It is time to get to work. Put those legs of yours to good use. Not knowing what else to do, is there anything else you can do, you begin to explore. You explore the castle and open treasure chests, and find loot. You examine the rooms first on the ground floor of the castle, which are of similar scale to the impressive entrance hall, large and richly furnished, but utterly unoccupied. After some time of aimless meandering, encountering nobody save the ghosts of eons past, memorialized on portraits upon the walls, you muster the courage to ascend to the second floor. This floor too you examine, wandering through a seemingly endless series of hallways until, at long last, you find a door. A door? Sometimes I read too quickly. That's the thing. This happens all the time, by the way. Because I'm reading, you find a door, which is ajar, but my brain is already reading ajar. So I said, you find a door, which is wrong. Anyway, you find a door, which is ajar. I need to, that's a funny thing about reading, at least reading aloud anyway. Because you need to kind of read ahead if you want to get the context of the sentence, right? And how you're supposed to read it. It's the way you say something, the tone of your voice. If it's like a question or it's like, something else, then you gotta like know the context of the sentence first. So that's why I read ahead, but like, well, how do you say it? It crosses the wires in my brain, Anyway, from between the crack in the door and the jamb, you can see flickering light. Irregular, yes, but it is light nonetheless. It'd be from a fireplace. That would suggest then that this room is occupied, unlike all the others. Perhaps the kindly princess you dreamed of would be awaiting you in this room. It is with a trembling hand that you press your palm against the door. You push it. You gently open the door. Then you step inside the bedchamber, which unveils itself to you. Shyly, you stand on the threshold of the chamber, much of your courage extinguished, and gasp. The bedroom itself is gorgeous. It is a chamber so luxuriant, not even the shadows can obscure the fine craft of the furniture within it, nor the rich patterns on the walls. It is the girl inhabiting the chamber, however, who truly takes your breath away. You're breathtaking. Okay, here's the next anime girl. It reminds me of Bowsette, to be honest. You know that Bowsette meme? Of like Bowser putting on the gender bender crown? Anyway. Sitting upon the velveteen sheets of the towering 4 poster is a girl in sumptuous red gown who seems to be of like age to you. Or seems to be of a like age to you. Sumptuous? Is it sumptuous? Sumptuous. You do not have a clear view of the girl's face. Or you do not have a clear view of the girl's face. Her head is bowed, her gaze directed downwards at her lap. You can tell from her hair, however, and from her slender curls, which protrude from beneath the hem of her dress, that she's very pretty. The girl's hair is golden, just like freshly cut wheat, but it is red of her dress which truly captures your attention. She is so striking that you cannot look away from her. Creepy doll. Suddenly just focus on the creepy doll, stock image. The girl is not alone in her chamber either. She has a companion, though this companion is not half so endearing as she is. In her lap, perched upon her velvet skirt, is a doll. The doll's hair, like that of her mistress's, is golden, though much of it is hidden beneath a bonnet. The girl is adjusting the china teacup held in the doll's tiny hand, while the rim of the cup glints in the light which exudes from the fireplace. It's just having a tea party. If the girl is of similar age to you, it seems strange that she would content herself by playing with dolls. Is she not too old for that? This girl would be more at home, you decide, at a ball, wearing an extravagant gown, speaking with wealthy noblemen, perhaps even princess. A princess? Princess. You should not be sitting in what you presume is her bedchamber, adjusting a teacup in a doll's hand. But you're not afforded much more time to stand there, marveling at the girl, because she turns. She raises her head. Then her eyes meet yours. You thought the girl pretty when you first observed her, sitting on the edge of her plush velveteen bed examining her doll. Now she is looking at you, however, her face illuminated by the flames in her grate. Or in their grate, you can see that you were mistaken. She is not just pretty. She is beautiful. So much so, it is breathtaking. What's the difference, by the way? Pretty, beautiful, isn't it the same? I don't know, anyway. I mean, they're just synonyms, I feel like. She looks as though she has stepped out of the pages of a picture book. She is simply too perfect to belong in this world. Too pure, too innocent. Perhaps she is some kind of vision, a waking dream, a hallucination. But no, she is none of those things. The doll in her lap is a cold, hard thing made of porcelain, and it is unflinchingly, reassuringly real. If she were a mirage, surely she would not be able to handle physical objects such as this. It is strange, though. The doll, though immaculately made, looks oddly imperfect when compared to the girl who is holding it. She is so startlingly beautiful, she even puts man-made representations of feminine charms to shame. The sight of her makes you feel rather weak. She's like a real-life anime girl. She always have had a fondness, or you always have had a fondness for fair maidens, haven't you? You lesbian. No, you're rather hopeless when it comes to them. Even worse than the knight errant from a courtly legend. Your aesthetic appreciation is not particularly ladylike, but, well, it's not every day a girl encounters an elegant beauty like this, entire in red, illuminated by a firelight. It's amazing how every girl that we meet is also a lesbian. Well, presumably, I don't know. Then again, when I think about it, I don't know if it's actually the case, but I don't know anyway. I also want, I mean, realistically, I also wonder how the attitudes, about that is, in this setting. But then again, it's like fantasy setting, so I can just make it up, whatever. Anyway, I suppose I can forgive you for this rudeness, as too can the girl. She does not seem to be the type to hold a grudge. Okay. Oh, the girl says in a voice that, surprisingly enough, is far less refined than her appearance. It is good to see you. I've been waiting. Has she? That is news to you. You blink, perplexed. A response on the tip of your tongue, but you are unable to expel it into the ether. The girl is setting her doll aside. Then she stands, the hem of her dress swishing about her legs. Nimbly, like a ballerina, she canvases the space between you. The room is so very large, there's quite a lot of space. Then takes your hands in her own. Hand-holding lute. You must, the girl says, her eyes aglow with excitement, be my new lady's maid. It's been a while. It's such a relief that you finally arrived. I knew that you would. You'd never leave me alone. Not when you knew how long I was waiting. Oh, I'm so happy. The girl's good mood is contagious, so much so you find yourself being swept away in it. You're tempted to accept any identity she might press upon you. You've never been a maid before, but you might not mind being the girl's maid. It's a lot of hard work, especially with a castle this big with one maid. A lot of cleaning you gotta do. Does not seem like a poor mistress to serve, now she's always this kind. You cannot mask the confusion, however, which flickers across your face. You're not a good enough actress. In any case, this is all happening too quickly. Why, you barely know this girl. Why is she being so very familiar? It is with blank bovine eyes that you examine the girl. Your befuddlement is pronounced enough that even the girl, despite her good mood, notices it. She frowns. Then she says, her fingers sliding away from your own. Or am I mistaken? Are you not my new lady's maid after all? The disappointment in the girl's face is abundant, so much so your heart clenches. Your heart clenches. You do not know her, she's still a stranger, but you are struck, all of a sudden, with the intense desire to appease her. You do not want to let her down. You're not going to let her down, run around, or desert her. The thought is devastating. You were not aware, you tell her, that you had applied to be her maid, but if that is what she wills, you will not be opposed to it. You pray that she forgives you, though, for your discombobulation. You come from a distant country and you have traveled for many miles. You know not where you are and you do not know who she is. What? You don't know who I am? It is regrettable, you tell her, but no, you do not know her, though that is no fault of her own. Why, you have spent such a long time running, you hardly even know yourself. Ah, so you are a fugitive, then, from another country. I see. I will pry into your past then, if you rather forget about it. I don't mind sharing my past with you, though. Everybody in this country knows who I am after all, or at least they should. Now this is quite the impressive boast. If it were to come from the lips of another, you would find it unpleasantly arrogant. You do not think, however, that this girl is trying to show off. You get the feeling instead that she's merely telling the truth. If you don't have the pleasure of knowing me, then allow me to do the honors. My father and my mother were the king and queen of this realm, and I am its princess. I live in this castle all my life, so I don't know much more about the outside world, but I know that other countries do exist out there. I presume it is from one of these foreign countries that you come from. It is very good to meet you. I've always wanted to talk to somebody from overseas. It feels like quite the opportunity. The girl giggles at this and you smile in response. You tell her unthinkingly that it is your pleasure, really, to meet her, or at least you mean to. You only get halfway through this remark when the full gravity of what the girl has told you sinks in. You come to a stop. Then you stare. Did she just say she was a princess? Yes, that's right. I'm a princess, and one day I'll be queen, after I've done a little bit of growing up. My ministers don't think I'm ready to run the country just yet, but I'm doing my best at my lessons. One day, I'm sure I'll be the best queen there ever was. So she really is a princess. That makes sense, you suppose, given she lives in the castle, but it comes as a surprise regardless. You hadn't known before you entered this chamber that you were trespassing on a lady with such great renown. Why, if she willed it, she could have you executed for your carelessness. An ugly red flush creeps up your face, a flush which is far more lurid than the princess's dress as you look to your feet. Bashfully, you stammer out the new address, though you're very sorry for intruding upon her, and you hope that she can forgive you. Oh, it's alright. Think nothing of it. I don't mind, really. We all make mistakes. And anyway, you weren't to know. You said you weren't from around here? You nod your head in silent affirmation. It isn't a complete lie. You really are not from this country. You're not from this world at all. What? Did you get isekai? I don't know, that's a very literal sentence, but... How wonderful. I'll look forward to picking your brain later. Literally. You know, my lobotomy tools. No, all of my servants come from a nearby village. Their tales are all the same, and so are their superstitions. I could do with a breath of fresh air. My last lady's maid told me I was too impetuous, but I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting a bit of adventure. Not that I've ever been afforded much of that. I've been shut up in here for so long, I hardly get a chance to talk to other girls my age. My last lady's maid was older than me, and so was the one before her, and the one before her. Some of the princess's fair mood seems to dissipate as she speaks, her expression turning by degrees into something rather more pensive. But I haven't seen any of my old lady's maids in a while, or any of the other servants for that matter. They've all disappeared. Now that is quite curious. How could a whole household full of servants simply disappear? Did they all just go on strike? You know, it's a labor strike. They formed a union, you know, and they simply did not go to work. Is what happened, maybe. Well, that I don't know. This castle was full of servants once. My lady's maids, and my undermaids, and my scullery maids, and my housekeeper, and my cooks, and a large retinue of retainers. They're all gone now, though. I think my ministers must have sent them away. I don't know why they would have done that, though. They didn't explain it to me. But then again, they never explain anything to me. They still treat me like a little girl. It is so tiring. You said that her ministers sent her servants away. What of her parents, the king and the queen? Would they not be the ultimate authorities in the castle's hierarchy? They would, yes, if they were still alive, but they're not. No, they died a long time ago. I was raised for most of my life by my servants. Oh, you answer and then you flush. You hadn't known. It's alright. You don't need to apologize. I'm just happy that I have you now. I was getting sick and tired of only having my dolls to speak to. They aren't the best conversational partners. You can imagine so, yes. You doubt any doll, even one made by a talented artisan, with intelligent face indistinguishable from a human's, will be very good at answering back. Oh no, they aren't. They're hopeless at it, really. They're so stony-lipped. You have no idea how much of a relief it is to see you. This castle is so big, and without my servants, it feels so very empty. It gets so lonely here. Here we go again. Now that is an interesting turn of phrase. It catches inside your head like a bird. Have you heard it before? Maybe, like 2 times at this point. Well, you don't have time to ponder this, however, because the princess is speaking anew, in that curiously conversational manner of hers which does not seem particularly princessy. Maybe she learned how to speak from her servants. That would explain her consonants are so, or that would explain why her consonants are so unrefined. Oh, but listen to me yammering on again. It's a bad habit. I really must put a stop to it. You're probably tired, dear one, from your travels. Would you like me to show you to your room? Yes, the princess announces before you can say anything in reply. I think I'll do just that. I might show you a bit around the castle first, though. It's like a maze in here, and I won't want you getting lost. You'll be staying here for quite some time after all. The princess then hastens to take you on a tour of her home. Fortunately, she does not show all the rooms in her abode, and neither does she offer overly long descriptions as to what the few rooms she does show you are used for. She does, however, pause by the kitchens, whereas she offers you some victuals. Once the growling in your belly has been satisfied, the princess then resumes her journey. I mean, all the servants are gone. I mean, it is a bit of a stereotype that nobles don't know how to do anything without, servants. How has she been living all this time? Does she know how to cook and everything? And, like, clean, bathe, I would imagine nobility, is often used to having everyone else doing everything for them. Just like rich people in real life, man. Like, these days. But anyway, she leads you down a dark, twisting hallway, and up a series of equally dark, twisting steps until she arrives at long last before a door. The princess pushes this door aside summarily? I don't know why I can't say that word. Summarily? Thus permitting you entrance to a small, humble bedchamber. The chamber is not half so opulent as the grand bedroom which the princess resides, with its resplendent four-poster and its richly patterned wallpaper. This room's ceiling is not as high, and the singular bed shoved against the wall is thin and narrow. The walls are an assuming beige, and the floor beneath your soles is of warped wood. There's a malodorous scent, too, or malodor scent, too, which hangs in the air, one of disuse and general decay. You get the feeling that nobody has slept in this room for quite some time. That might explain why it feels so very cold in here. Now, if the princess's tour of her castle has taught you anything, is that it is cold in every room in her abode. Now here we are, the final stop of our tour. This will be your room, dear one. I hope it's to your liking. The princess, despite her exalted status, looks somewhat uneasy as she observes you, her eyes upturned like those of a loyal dog's. Is she concerned about your reaction to this room? Perhaps she is afraid that you turn her nose up at her kindness. From princess, she is awfully eager to please. This unexpected contrast between the princess's lofty title and her ingratiating attitude makes you smile. This room is rather scanty, yes, when it comes to its contents, but it is more than passable. As a roof and four walls, and though it's cold, you fancy you will feel warmer once you slip beneath the bed sheets. The room is not quite so fancy as your dormitory at the conservatoire, and neither is it so large, but it does have one glaring improvement over your previous lodgings. You will not be expected to share with anybody else. There's only one bed in this room, and this bed is to belong to you. You think that the peace and quiet will do you a world of good. You tell the princess as much, and she smiles. Oh, that's good. I was worried you wouldn't like it. I know it isn't much to look at, but it's one of the nicest servants' rooms we have in the castle. Most of the maids sleep beneath the roof in this teeny tiny room, which is all cramped. There's 10 beds up there, and they're so close together, there's barely any room to pass between them. I thought it was perfectly ghastly when I saw it. The last time I went up there, not that I was supposed to be up there. It was a rainy day and I couldn't go outdoors, so I was doing a bit of exploring. If the housekeeper had known I was skulking around, I don't think she would have been best pleased. Well, in any case, nobody sleeps up there anymore. The scullery maids are all gone now. I couldn't put you up there, though, in the attic with those empty beds. I don't think it'd be very cheery. You're not just a scullery maid, you're my lady's maid. That means you deserve a good lodgings. It'd been an insult to offer you any less than this. Now, it's getting late. You have to forgive me for rabbiting on. I've heard it's something I tend to do. It's a bad habit, one that's unbecoming for a lady. The housekeeper's warned me enough times. You reassure the princess to the contrary, smiling as you do so. You do not mind if she talks too much. That's better than not talking at all. Her affable nature makes it easier to spend time with her, manners be damned. You were always scolded too, back in the conservatoire, for your behavior. You know full well how aggravating it can be to be upbraided, not for any particular misdemeanor, but for being yourself. Well, I'm glad you understand, the princess answers with a giggle. I really should be off, though. It's bad manners to keep you, especially when you look so sleepy. Get some rest. We'll talk more tomorrow, if you don't mind my ceaseless prattle. I'm glad you seem to appreciate it, at least. Though I'm sure you'll get tired of it eventually. All my old mates did. The princess departs in her absence. You take a seat upon your bed, your new bed. You cannot help but think this is happening very quickly. It does not seem like very long ago that you're still in the forest, running for your life amongst the tall, imposing trees with their gnarled, grasping branches. The forest might as well be a distant memory now, though. Instead, you now have your very own apartment. You know, you have your own bachelor's apartment, the castle, I guess, and you don't have to pay rent. It's great. You are indoors, inside a castle no less, and you've been given a room in which to sleep in clothes that you might wear. It seems premature still to declare that you're out of the woods, in a metaphorical sense I mean, but things could certainly be worse. You force yourself to stand on legs which feel too weary to support you, and change into nightclothes hanging in the wardrobe. Nightclothes do not fit you perfectly, but you're too tired to care about that. You're too tired to care much of anything. You do retreat to the bed and slide beneath its sheets. Then you let your eyelids fall shut. You exhale, and lulled by the breeze which blows outdoors, you fall asleep. You're so very tired. Your sleep is a deep, dark one, darker even than the furthest abysses of the nighttime. Like the nighttime sky, however, which shimmers with stars, your sleep is not devoid of those prismatic fragments you humans call dreams. Though in this case, I'd rather think your nocturnal imaginings are worth rather more than that. They're not dreams, are they, to which your slumbering mind is subjected? You know that they are not. Otherwise, your body would not be so very cold, not so clammy. The images that flicker beneath your closed eyelids, like the ghostly images in a... How do you say that? Phenakistoscope. What is a phenakistoscope? Is it like a kaleidoscope? Phenakistoscope. What is that? Phenakistoscope, an optical instrument which produces a representation of actual motion, as in leaping, walking, flying, etc. Oh, it's one of those discs things. I remember. I remember that because of the House of Fata Morgana. You know, that long visual novel that I played a while back, which is very like I don't know, very Shakespearean, I would describe it as. But anyway, but yeah, there's a scene that involved that. It's like a little disc of images on it, and then you like spin it, and it looks like it's moving. But yeah, the ghostly images of phenakistoscope, which I still don't pronounce, were not conjured from within your mind. They were instead taken from your memories. You're not merely dreaming, you are remembering. You remember the girls who slept in your dormitory, and how they always hastened to use the shower first, so you were last for breakfast. You remember how, when you finally did arrive at the dining hall, those desirable morsels had already been snaffled up by the girls who got there earlier. You struggled too to find a seat, once you finally did get your hands on some food, because nobody ever wanted to sit with you. The other girls all acted like you were a leper, save for when they wanted favors. They never asked for these favors, mind, or why would they? To them, your father's prestige did not matter. They were all wealthy ladies too, many of them wealthier than you. And everybody has the airs and graces of a princess. How is anybody supposed to stand out? You stood out the least in your class, perhaps because you were the one of the smallest, the frailest, and the sickliest, who always came down cold in the winter. Your poor health did not stop the other girls from treating you as a servant, though, when they remembered that you existed, of course. It was your lot in life, as you dwell within the stone walls of the conservatoire, to carry school bags across the field like a pack mule. And come the evenings, the girls in your dormitory had you sewing on missing buttons, and ironing out the creases and wrinkles in the uniforms. If there's an odd job that needed performing, you would always be asked. These girls did not ask you. That would be too civilized. They ordered you instead. As they ordered you, they laughed at you. They laughed and they laughed and they laughed. The laughter hurt, but it hurt considerably less than the kicks did, and the slaps and the pinches. Once during an embroidery lesson, one of your lessons had an accident with sewing scissors. She stumbled, or at least she pretended to, and before you knew it, the silver blades of those scissors were embedded in your left palm. This happened quite some time ago, when you were even littler than you are now, but you can still remember it. It hurt a lot. The scissors were sharp, and they perforated. I can't say that word either. I think I know what that means. It means like holes, basically. Perforated. The scissors were sharp and they perforated your skin, not all the way down to the bone, but enough to bleed. Your wound bled bright red, like strawberry jam, all over your embroidery. Then when your professor saw her, she shrieked. Her face turned as pale as way, and she looked for a few moments as though she might faint, though you were the one who was in pain. The professor looked at your face. You could not bear to look at your hand, and demanded to know why you could not be more careful. Her tone being an accusatory one, almost as if you've been stabbed yourself in the hand with your scissors to goad her. The pain in your hand hurt, but the giggles of your persecutors hurt all the more. They never were punished for that. Perhaps the professor did not care enough to punish them. Perhaps she, like everybody else, thought it was all your fault. The wound, when it was all said and done, was not too deep. You did not even need any stitches. Did they have stitches back then? I don't know. Healed only well enough in time on its own, though still left a scar. A white raised thing like a crescent moon. You still have that scar. You don't know how much blood you lost. It seemed like a lot back in the classroom. You smell it in the air, sharp as iron. But it could not have been that much, evidently. If your wound had been more serious, perhaps your professor might have cared. Perhaps your classmates too would have felt some modicum of guilt over what they did. But this seems very unlikely. You know that your blood meant nothing to your classmates. Why should it? If it meant next to nothing, then the blood in your veins was, if such a thing is possible, even more inconsequential. Okay. Again, being bullied at school. As usual. You feel disorientated when you awake, at long last, with the rising of the sun. You do not remember what you dreamt, but do not think that your dreams were of a particularly pleasant nature. If they were, your heart would not be hammering so. Ill at ease, you glance around. You're lying in a narrow bed in an unremarkable room, one with dull beige walls and a warped wooden floor. Where exactly are you? This does not look like your dormitory in the conservatoire. I keep saying the conservatoire. Not unless it has shrunk threefold overnight. Your brow furrows as you attempt to recall the events of the night prior, until with a gasp it all clicks into place. You remember now. You were running through the woods, trying to escape from... You shudder. You did not want to think of what it was you were trying to escape from. I don't know. It's never been revealed yet why we're running, from the forest. You would think she'd be running away from the conservatoire, right? Running away from school, basically, because she's been bullied for so long. So she simply just left, because it was getting too much for her, to the point like even, just running into a forest is better than dealing with her life, I guess. That's what I'm assuming, but I don't know. Not entirely sure. Anyway, you presume that you must have given your hunter the slip, though, because you're still in one piece, awake and alert enough to face the dawning of the new morning. You still have all your limbs, and your facial features appear to be in the correct configuration. That's more than enough to be getting along with. You look to the foot of your bed and then blink, bemused at your discovery. You can see lying upon the sheets a garment, two garments actually, of black and white, folded into a neat white square. Is that a maid uniform? Could that be a maid's outfit? If so, it would not be too surprising. You now recall your visit of the princess the night prior, and her assertions that you must be her lady's maid. But if that's the role she wants you to assume, you have no qualms with it. It is far preferable to the other role you played last night, that of a startled quarry running from its pursuer. You press your fingers against the humble maid's attire. It feels surprisingly soft at the touch, not coarse like you expected. These clothes are rather fine. Did the princess put them here? If so, that's all the more reason to wear them. You're not churlish enough to deny her hospitality. You rise from your new bed, then undress yourself, unbuttoning the front of your plain white nightgown and setting it aside. This task accomplished, you then clad yourself in your new attire, black, white, and eminently sensible. You feel very far away from the girl that you once were. Your face might be the same as always, but something within you seems to have changed. You're no longer a student. Not as long as you're mean to reside within the princess's castle. You would far rather be her servant. We found a new job. Assured of your newfound identity, you retreat from your chamber and make your way to the mistress's bedroom. The castle is a large one with many, many rooms and many, many hallways that connect them, and for a brief while you find yourself horrendously lost. You cannot remember where the princess's bedroom is. You begin to feel rather disorientated when, to your relief, your eyes snag upon a stairway which looks rather familiar. Could this be the way? You ascend these steps, your footfall is cushioned by the plush carpet which lines them, and find your way down the very same hall you traversed the night prior. If your memory does not fail you, then the princess's bedroom ought to be. Yes, it's here. You rap upon the door but receive nothing in the way of a response. Is the princess still abed? You wonder briefly whether you ought to wait until she has risen of her own accord. But no. The sun is high in the sky, and it would seem ashamed to let the princess sleep for the day. You ought instead to rouse her. That seems like the sort of duty a lady's maid should attend to. You enter the princess's bedroom and glance about. The room looks much the same as you remember it from the night prior, though the ceiling seems even higher when viewed in the wane morning's light. Wane? Is it wane or what? Wane? No. You can see now there are fewer shadows to impede your view. How very opulent your young mistress's abode is. Her armoire is large and imposing, as is the grate in which you would be expected to keep a fire lit during the nights. The princess herself, meanwhile, is curled on her side beneath the sheets, looking rather less grandiose than her title would suggest. She's attired in a nightgown adorned with frills, and hair is slit across her pillow like spilled gold. In her slender arms, meanwhile, held to her chest, is a doll, the very same one she was cassetting last night. You suppose this doll must be her favorite. Idly, you wonder what the doll's name is, though you do not suppose it matters all that much. It is time to wake your mistress. You call out to the princess, but she's largely unresponsive. Her eyelashes are still sewn sewn tightly shut, and her lips pursed in slumber. You purse your lips too and sigh. Well, nobody ever said your job would be easy. Once again, you call to the princess, and this time she replies. Her response is not a favorable one, however. She sighs, and then turns away from you, her doll clutched to her chest. Just give me a little longer. The princess sounds so enfeebled, but you do not take pity on her. If you learn anything from the conservatoire, save for knowledge pertaining to the respiratory tracts of fish, is that one must be cruel to be kind. I don't know about that. I don't know about that considering that she's been bullied, most of her time there. I think people are just cruel to be cruel. But anyway. You do not think this adage was practiced with any great success in the conservatoire, but perhaps have more of an impact upon the princess. You tell her once again to wake up, more sternly this time. You will not let her sleep, for she has slept long enough already. It's very slovenly, really, to still be in bed at such an hour. It's like you're a neat. Oh, defeated, the princess sighs. Alright, I can see that I can't twist you around my little finger. I'm up, you don't need to nag me. Once you arouse the princess from her bed, you have put her doll to one side, you set upon her toilette. You aid the princess in the brushing of her hair, a chore to which she submits willingly, like a cat might allow its fur to be brushed. You allow yourself to ponder, as you run the bristles of the princess's brush through her hair, how wonderfully soft it feels against your skin. Then a curious query from the princess. Are you alright, dear one? Brings you back to your senses. You're rather lost in thought there. Looking lively now, you wouldn't want the princess to catch wind of your salacious thoughts, would you? I thought you had learned your lesson about that already. Suitably chastened? You finish with the princess's hair, then set the brush aside. Now that the princess's tresses have been taken care of, you must don her attire. The princess remains seated upon the edge of her bed, looking up at you askance. She does not ask you to avert your eyes, nor does she make any motion divesting herself of her nightgown. It really does seem as though she expects you to undertake this task on your own. Is that alright? He asks the princess as much. You would not wish to impede upon her modesty, but she only laughs. Yes, that's all right. What you're supposed to do if you're not, or it's what you're supposed to do if you're to be my lady's maid. I'm used to being dressed and undressed. I'm not a bit squeamish about it. She might not be squeamish about it, but you are. I've never seen a naked woman before except yourself. Even then, however, I'm always dressed and undressed furtively. I want to examine your body for longer than is strictly necessary. It reminds me, was that like term, like someone who's never naked or something? I don't know. I think there's a word for that. I don't remember what it is. It seems kind of silly. Anyway, you have never much liked the way that you look, even though you just look like a typical anime girl. You make a few more mumbled objections, but the princess sweeps them to one side easily. It's alright. I might be a princess, but we're both people underneath all our clothes. We're just made of, blood and organs, that's all. I thought we'd look much different. You're not sure about that. You're not seeing the princess unadorned, but you already know to look at her face that you are different. She's much, much prettier than you are. But she's waiting and you do not wish to keep her any longer. You steady your nerves. And then you reach out with trembling hands and begin to undo the buttons which run down the front of the princess's nightgown. And then you stir her butt. You work as quickly as you're able, which, given how badly your hands are shaking, is not very. You fumble with a couple of the buttons, flinching as you do so. The princess, however, seems blissfully unaware of what it is exactly you are doing, or not doing, for your fingers have begun to seize up, with the front of her nightgown. She's not even looking at you. Instead, her gaze is directed beyond your shoulder, to the windowsill and the sky beyond it. It isn't particularly sunny, but I don't think it's too cold outside. Going for a walk might not be a bad idea. What do you think, dear one? You think that you would like to finish undressing the princess as soon as possible, so you can make some progress undressing her again. Sight of all this exposed skin is bad for your heart, because you're gay. Now, fortunately, you were able to make quick work of the princess's nightgown despite your initial mishaps, spurred on perhaps by your anxiety. You bid the princess to stand, which she does, and neatly she steps out of her nightgown. Her motions once again are as graceful and as fluid as a dancer's. This task completed, you search hurriedly, worriedly for the princess's red dress. Where is it? You cannot find it. So it begins to prickle on the back of your neck. Your palms, meanwhile, feel uncomfortably clammy, palms sweaty, mom spaghetti. The moments pass awkwardly, uneasily as you search. The princess standing there all the while as naked as the day she was born. Why did you not find her day dress before you stripped her of her night one? What a fool you are. The princess, noting your panic, giggles and then says, Are you looking for my dress? Yes, you reply, your face flushed. It is what you were doing. Well, I thought so. I did wonder before you started undressing me why you didn't ask me where it was. Maybe it slipped your mind? It had slipped your mind, yes, to your shame. You're too busy trying not to fixate upon the princess's bared skin to think about how best to conceal it. My dress is in my armoire, the princess says, glancing over the aforementioned piece of furniture. How do you say that? Armoire? Armoire? The armoire of hers is an intricately carved wooden structure, large enough, as so you estimate, to fit inside enough dresses to attire whole ballrooms full of princesses. I like to wear the red one. It's my favorite. Would you be a dear and fetch it for me? I don't want to rush you, but it's rather cold in here, especially when I'm still naked. She raises a good point. You turn away from the princess and make your way to her armoire. Once there, you open its wooden doors and peruse the clothes hanging within. It is just as you expected. Inside the wardrobe lies numerous dresses, all of them finely sewn and decorated with no shortage of ribbons, lace, and iridescent pearls. You find the princess's red dress soon enough and hurry to her side. With your spoils in hand, you hurry to dress her, concealing once again the princess's pale skin beneath layers upon layers of soft red velvet. Very puffy. This is that very, I don't know. It was always this thing, this thing, that puffy part of like medieval clothes. I don't know what you call it, but it is very medieval. I guess they mentioned ribbons. Is that what it is? Just ribbons hanging? Oh, I guess that's what it is. Very, I guess it's very Renaissance, I guess. It reminds me of soldiers, actually. Like certain types of soldiers in the Renaissance era, I believe, or around that time. They would wear like very eye-catching and flamboyant, uniforms. And I'm not sure why, but I guess it was fashionable at the time, especially for military to wear that. I guess it's good for morale. I'm not sure, but they would wear these very colorful costumes, you know, and they'd be look kind of like this, right? Except it wouldn't be like a dress, I guess. But, you know, I think it was a certain type of soldier. It was like a type of mercenary soldier in particular that was like Zweihanders, and I don't know. Anyway, she's easier to look at now, you think, with her skin concealed. That might have been the most nerve-wracking task you have ever had to accomplish, even more so than your perilous escape through the foggy forest. Why, it seems a small miracle you can still remember how to brave. Ah, that's much better. Thank you, dear one, for your help. We've not been here for a full day, but I already wonder what I'd do without you. Shyly, you assured the princess that you did nothing, really. Nothing beyond your job. You did not do anything incredible. In any case, being complimented by somebody so pretty is embarrassing. Don't be like that. I want to compliment you. Why shouldn't I when you've been so helpful? It'd be rude not to, anyway. I think you're very pretty too. Oh my. Her face flushes from this, more deeply than ever before. You know, the entire game is just the flush emoji. At least the main character anyway. Just imagine the main character. Her face is just a giant, like, flushed emoji, you know? Anyway. You ought to count yourself lucky, really. What of all this excessive blushing? The princess does not seem to possess any vampiristic tendencies. What do you mean, vampiristic tendencies? What do you mean? She's suddenly a vampire? I mean, that does look like a fan to me. You make yourself quite the easy target. I mean, I wouldn't, I wouldn't be surprised if it turns out the twist is that she's a vampire. I don't know. I mean, there's mermaids and there's freaking, like, a mysterious plague. There's a lot of supernatural stuff happening. Now, the princess declares, why don't we go for a walk? It's a nice enough day, and I get so very bored of being cooped up inside. We can't think of any particular objections to raise this remark. You think the princess might have a point. The castle, though expansive, is somewhat stifling. The walls are so very thick, they put you in mind of a crypt. Of your acquiescence assured, the princess quits her chamber, her posture elegant and her gait unhurried. She seems not to walk as she navigates her way through the seemingly endless hallways of her home, but to float like a cloud. The hem of her dress swishes around her legs, and her hair shifts like a shroud. The castle's courtyard, meanwhile, is sadly lacking in comparison to the princess's beauty. The courtyard is fenced in by the castle's walls, which look in the stark midday light, tall and imposing, faceless soldiers standing sentinel. Though the sun is out, it is not particularly bright, and neither is it particularly warm. The courtyard itself, meanwhile, is in a state of disarray. The flower beds are in shambles, all overgrown with weeds. It's all rather depressing. The princess's castle might be grand in scale, but the courtyard itself is simple, hemmed in to a claustrophobic degree, like a coffin. The princess, however, seems not to share your dolorous mood. She instead looks elated by her newfound surroundings, her smile unwavering. She gambols about like a lamb, flitting hither and thither as she examines the weed-infested flower beds. Her frolicking some comes to an ease, however, by a bush. One is full of bright red roses. Or one that is full of bright red roses? Oh, how very pretty. Do you not think they're gorgeous, dear one? The flowers are not too disappointing, you suppose. They make for a fine spectacle, in fact, a welcome splash of color, when contrasted with the dullness and the drabness which permeates the rest of the courtyard. Though the other flowers in their beds are wilted, withered things, it is not so for these roses. They are rich bright red, just like blood, their heads so full they seem to droop beneath the weight of their old engorged petals. Well, they almost seem to do that anyway. They are pretty, in a sense. There's something unsettling about them too. Something that is almost obscene. Obscene red roses, apparently. These flowers are so lewd. No, how do these roses become so very red? What has been sustaining them? Could it be possible these roses have been draining life from the other flowers, which are struggling to grow within this garden? It is a fanciful thought, but... Oh, they're simply divine. Looking at these roses always lifts my spirits. They really are my most favorite flowers. I was going to colors, not flowers. I simply must pick some of them. Perhaps can use them to decorate my bedchamber. It could use a better color. The princess reaches out as to pluck one of the roses free from its resting place among its brethren. You watch her, your breath abated, anxious that this gesture might result in... I just looked up this word. It's perforated. Perforated. I don't know. I can't say. I don't know how to say some words. Perforated. I gotta say it like 5 times, 10 times, so it's in my brain. Perforated. Anyway, anxious this gesture might result in perforated flesh and bright red. I'm gonna say color again for some reason. I don't know the color red. I just think color, I guess. I know. Anxious this gesture might result in perforated flesh and bright red blood. But the princess is not as clumsy as you fear. Of course she is not. Who do you think she was? You? Like you, a loser? Rather than worrying about other people, you would be better served if you worried more about yourself. The princess holds her newly pilfered rose to her nose and inhales. Her eyelids falling shut as the flower's sweet scent washes over her. A few moments of silence pass. Then the princess begins to toy with the petals which adorn the flower's crown. Now let me see. I wonder what fate she has in store for me. She loves me? The princess plucks a petal from the flower's overburdened head. She loves me not. The princess continues with this childish incantation, all the while stripping her rose slowly and methodically of its petals. These petals flutter about the princess like bloody snow. The princess's voice, meanwhile, echoes throughout the courtyard, even more melodic than the strains of pianola. She loves me not. She loves me not. The princess's fingers hover over the final petal which crowns her nearly denuded flower. Then with a triumphant smile, she declares, She loves me, I knew it. You watch the princess amused by her girlish good cheer. The little mantra she's been reciting is one that you're familiar with. The girls at the conservatoire, who also used to engage in the little game, the younger ones at least, believe that the fairy tale prince would whisk them away. You might have participated in this game yourself when you were a child yourself, but you never pin your hopes and dreams on a handsome prince because you're totally super gay. Your interest in princes has always been minimal. When it comes to fair princesses, though, well, that's a different matter altogether, isn't it? I do wonder, as I said before, I do wonder in this medieval setting, I do wonder if her, let's just say, orientation might have been the root cause of her ostracization, maybe? Possibly? Kind of be cliche, but it makes sense. I don't know. Anyway. Am I saying that right? Ostracization. Is that a word? I don't know. Anyway. Pleasantly, you ask the princess whose love it is she wishes to court. A query which makes the princess giggle. Oh, dear one. Who else would I be thinking of? Naturally, I was thinking of you. Naturally. She said it so easily as though you ought to have suspected as much, and indeed, part of you did. You wanted to believe, yet part of you was afraid to. You not be arrogant enough to assume that the princess might care for your affections. You begin to blush, your cheeks almost as red as the roses, while the princess laughs. She laughs and she laughs and she laughs, her voice clear and sweet like a nightingale's song, and as though you are the funniest thing she has ever seen. You never like being laughed at when you draw within the walls of the conservatoire, but it is different with her. You have not known her for all that long, but you're already entranced by her, ensnared. She has you wrapped around her little finger. Oh my. The princess's laughter tapers off into a series of giggles as, smiling, she wipes her eyes with the back of her hand. That was quite the amusing diversion, but I've just had an idea. You look at the princess curiously. What idea? You can't tell? And you cannot even begin to guess. I just thought that all this watching must be boring you, the princess says, tossing the rose's stripped stem carelessly to the ground. You should give it a try. Please do. It'll be fun. The princess retrieves a second red rose from the bushes, deftly snapping it between her fingers, and offers it to you. I want to see what fate has in store for you too. You smile at the princess, touched by her enthusiasm. Indulging in childish games like this might not be the best use of your time, but the princess looks so very determined you would not wish to hurt her. What could be the harm, really, in consenting? The only real casualty of this game will be one singular rose. The rose that the princess is holding towards you. You simply need to sacrifice the life of this flower, which is debatably, whether or not it's actually, I guess considered. Well, I mean, it is a living thing, but is it like the same thing as like a sentient being? But anyway, we reach out, me to accept the princess's offering, but oh no, you're clumsy and you seize the stem of the rose with a touch too much strength. The head of the rose might be pretty, but there's more to a rose than its bright red flowers. Roses have thorns too. In fact, you are now being painfully reminded of. Pain flares through your finger, and you gasp. You take a step back, the hem of your skirt swishing around your ankles. Your finger is stinging, and so your eyes. You ought to be more careful. Why were you so stupid? Oh, you poor dear. You're bleeding, the princess exclaims, alarmed. Then she frowned. This is all my fault. If I had not suggested this little game, this never would have happened. Please, let me take care of you. And how is she going to do that? Perhaps she means to take a handkerchief from her pocket, with which she might staunch your wound. Princesses tend to carry handkerchiefs around with them, don't they, Simkin ones? How else would they give brave knights tokens of their gratitude once these aforementioned knights have successfully slain dragons? Princesses can hardly dispense kisses as favors. It simply is not done. As we always thought, but... Please, hold still. This might sting a little bit. This princess is anything but ordinary. Rather than take a handkerchief out of her pocket, she instead encloses her white slinger fingers around your hand. Carefully, as though she's handling a precious object, she raises her hand, her eyes affixed, all the while on the beads of startlingly crimson blood which are oozing luridly from your wound. She licks her lower lip. Nump. And then she dips her head. Yeah. She parts her mouth with a soft sigh which borders on the sensuous. She slips your injured digit between her teeth. This reminds me of Fate's Day Night, Heaven's Feel. The family-friendly version in which Sakura would do this in particular. She would drink her blood. Anyway. Also, I would never, I always see that actually. Whenever you get like a paper cut or something, and then you see someone like sucking their finger or whatever in order to stop the bleeding. I don't know. I don't know how effective that is. I'm assuming it is effective, but still, I don't know. The idea is just kind of gross to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm a bit of a germaphobe, but like, especially in your hands, putting it in your mouth. I feel like there's just so much germs in your hands, especially if you're bleeding, you're putting even more germs in your hand, moisturized by your mouth, which probably has germs too. Don't you get sick doing that? I don't know. You always see it though. Especially if someone else does it for you. Their germs. I don't know if you want to mix their germs with your blood. You're going to get like really sick really quickly. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. I don't statistically, I don't know how like likely it is to make you sick, but you would think it would, right? But you see it all the time. I always see people do that. They get like a cut and it would just like suck on it. I don't know. So much for princesses not dispensing kisses as tokens of appreciation. This might not be a conventional kiss, but feels intimate regardless, almost startlingly so. The princess's lips, which are as red as any rose, are enclosed around your index finger. You feel the warmth of the princess's mouth about your skin and the wetness of it. These sensations make your whole body quake. Well, there's a word for that. Anyway, you do not expect this. Tremulously, in a voice which wavers, you ask the princess what it is she's doing. Oh? The princess glances up at you, her mouth still enclosed around your finger. Didn't I tell you? I'm trying to stop the bleeding. Yes, you gather as much, but is there a problem? I'm not making you uncomfortable, am I? Now, I'm assuming she's still sucking on the finger as she talks. It is not, you say, that she is making you uncomfortable per se, but it's rather awkward. You're not expected, that is all. And is she not worried about that this is unhygienic? That's what I'm saying, bro. Unhygienic? You know, does that exist, you know, in medieval times? You know, I don't think germ theory was even a thing yet until quite a while, you know, or I don't know how to describe it. Quite a while, or until quite a bit, rather. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. You know, like germ theory didn't exist until quite a bit. You know, I know like doctors, for example, did not wash their hands in between surgeries, and nowadays we know that's like horrible. But like back in the day, you know, they didn't know. So we know at some point they're like putting leeches on you and they're like cutting you up, and then when they're done, they're like shoving those bloody hands to another body. It's like, you know, a lot of people died that way, but they didn't realize it was because, you know, of infections. But anyway, the princess blinks. She's the very picture of innocence, which is funny, really, given your finger is still nestled against her tongue. I don't know what you mean by that exactly, but I heard this is the best way to take care of cuts. My nursemaid used to do this for me when I was a child. It's what you're supposed to do. And you ask, your voice catching your throat, that her nursemaid keeps staunching her wounds in her mouth when she grew older. Oh no, but my nursemaid was dismissed when I was 8 years old. That's a normal way of things. I had my lady's maids to look after me then. How very interesting. And they would clean her wounds like this. No, the princess says, smiling mischievously, because I'm not clumsy enough to cut myself, silly. Now that was quite the sharp retort. Almost as sharp as the cut you got from the rose. You did not expect it. Your face turns even redder, if such a thing is possible, though this might perhaps be to your benefit. With some luck, all of your blood will flow to your face rather than to your finger, and your bleeding will stop. And you have a nosebleed instead, just like an anime or something, huh? Has it stopped? Your injury was now a deep one. There should be no need for the princess to keep on suckling, but she still is. She just likes the blood, you know? As it turns out, she is a vampire. Though she is sitting and, you know, she's standing out in sunlight. Maybe she's just a very powerful vampire, you know, that doesn't have any of the typical weaknesses. You know, that's not how it works. You're not accustomed to the intimacy of this nature. It is making your heart aflutter. If the princess knew what what her mouth was doing to you, you're sure she would not be so very familiar. You feel quietly, crushingly confident that she would scorn you for your feelings and deem them unnatural. I was gonna say, like, it's a sin. No, I mean, that would be the attitude, you know, especially back then when religion, you know, was prominent as like a, how do you say, as like the morality, I guess. I don't know what the word is, but you know, the dominant morality of society will be religion, you know, back then, you know. Anyway, it would not be the first time. At this point, you should be used to rejection. It still stings, though. It stings much, much more than any thorn or any rose ever could. The days pass, following your misadventures in the rose garden, in a relaxed, unhurried sort of manner. Your mad dash through the forest is beginning to feel like a distant memory, so much so you can scarcely recall the raw, naked fear you once felt as you fled for your life. There's no running to be had while you're working for the princess. You have nowhere else to run. In any event, there's no longer any reason to run. The shadows which once tormented you have at long last begun to recede. You can scarcely recall as you lay down your bed the petty cruelties you were subjected to by your classmates in the conservatoire. They no longer matter. Your attention is focused not upon yourself, but upon the princess. The more time you spend with her, the more you come to care for her. You've been quite besotted with her, but you are yet to realize it. Well, I never. How very ignorant can one girl be of her own feelings? The princess is not half so ignorant as you are, though, despite having spent her whole life within the palace's walls. The way of her own feelings are not unknown to her, and during one stormy night, she chooses to make them known to you. You are in the princess's chambers later, perhaps, than you ought to be, later than is strictly appropriate. It's dark outside, and there's little save the light of the moon to alleviate that. Light of the moon to alleviate it, that, and the fire which crackles in the grate. You know, apparently a few days have passed, by the way. I was just wondering, where do they get food? You know, it's the same thing with the village, but like, you know, I was wondering where they keep the food here. Like, I imagine even in a grand castle such as this, like, I don't know how much food they can, like, store that would, like, last so long. You know, grocery stores did not exist back then. At least not in the way it exists now. I guess it would be a market, but I don't know. You had to go. You would have to go back to civilization. You know, you would have to like collect civilization and gather the food and everything. You would go to like a peasant farm. You know, steal food from them because you're like a noble, right? And everything. I don't know. I was just wondering, you know, where do they keep all the food? Where's the food coming from, even? Anyway, you have only just finished stoking that very fire, and now you rise. You look at the princess, who is lying in her bed, and you bid her a good night, as you have many nights past. With a neat curtsy, you turn to leave, but the princess's plaintive voice gives you pause. Wait, dear one. Do not go. Not just yet. Perplexed, you pause and look back at the princess. Though she's smiling, her expression is unusually wan. Wan? Is it Wan or Wayne? Is it Wayne's World? No. Wan. Wan. Anyway, is she alright? Oh, I'm sure I'll be fine. It's just nights like this, you know, which make me feel a little out of sorts. I'm glad you asked what she mean by that. Only that it's very cold and very dark. It's very windy besides. I'm afraid there'll be a storm later. It was awfully cloudy earlier when we went out for a walk. The princess is not mistaken about that. The sky, when the pair of you promenaded about the gardens earlier, was grey and steely, the wind bitingly cold. You can hear the wind rattling mournfully against the panes in the princess's bedchamber. The princess's castle is built of stone. It is well fortified, but even with the fire, it is rather cold. You do not like to think of how much chillier by comparison it will be in your humble bedchamber, which is not fortunate enough to have its own fireplace. It might sound childish, but I've always found it hard to sleep on stormy nights like this. They make me feel uncomfortable. You look at the princess with no small degree of sympathy. No longer clad in her bright red dress, she looks oddly, uncommonly vulnerable. Would she really be alright all alone in her oversized bed in her high-ceilinged bedchamber? You know, it is silly of you to contemplate such a query. How should she not be alright? There's nobody in council to hurt her, but still, you fret for her. As her lady's maid, it is your job to fret for her. You would never want your mistress to feel unhappy. You ask the princess what it is she would have you do, and the princess perks up at this, pleased, perhaps, that you're taking the initiative. I wouldn't like to take up too much of your time when it is so very late. Would you mind sitting with me a little while longer, and reading to me, provided that you can, of course? That is a fair enough question, but your pride bristles regardless. Basically, you reassure the princess that yes, of course you could read. Yeah, because most peasants couldn't, I guess. You were a poor student in many aspects of the conservatoire, but it's something of a gift when it came to the literary arts. Reading books is all you have been reading books is all you have ever been any good at, or all you have ever been any. I don't know. Read that emphasis. Oh, I see. I suppose I should have known. You're so incredible. I sometimes wonder if there's anything you can't do. The princess's high praises make you flush. Awkwardly, you look away. Being able to read, you reassure her, is not such a great feat. I mean, it is actually. It is back then. You know, it is actually a great feat back then. You know, back when education was limited. I said before, right? Like, education back, again, I don't know what the era is specifically, but around late medieval ages, Renaissance era, there's no such thing as public education. You know, everything was private, and so, you know, it was exclusive to the nobility, right? It was a privilege to be educated, right, in general. And so being able to read is definitely not something that everyone can do. Maybe the exception if you, you know, or like at a church maybe, and like your job is to like, you know, like record stuff and everything. And sometimes there would be some kind of informal education going on in churches in general, right? But otherwise, you know, it is actually a thing that not everyone can do. Perhaps it isn't where you hail from, but it is here. Very few of my old servants could read, and they certainly couldn't read the books that I like. This piques your interest. Intrigued, you ask the princess what books exactly she liked. Well, you see, there's this there's this manga. Well, I'm glad you asked. I'm fond of fairy tales, you see, old ones from centuries past. A collection of them here, the princess says, indicating a book on her bedside table as thick as a mortuary slab. That's also a thing as well. Books were rare too, because before the printing press, books were very rare. They were like very prized possessions because you couldn't really replicate them very easily. The only way to do that would be to manually like write it out, right? To copy everything to like another book and everything. So it was hard work, making books back then. Nowadays, you can just get all the books you want, really, online. No need for paper. But anyway. The book is old though, and the bindings are weak. The pages are brittle, the writing woefully old-fashioned. I didn't trust any of my past servants with that book, but I think you would do a good job bringing life into these old stories. Would you mind reading to me for just a brief while? Please, dear one, oh please. The princess's request seems a simple one expressed sweetly, so much so you see no reason to refuse her. You take a seat beside the princess upon her luxurious bed, which sinks beneath your weight. Then you then. I think that's a typo. Very rare typo, I imagine, because I feel like the writer of this visual novel is writing at such a high level, at least comparatively to your average, at least visual novel that I read. But yeah, rare typo. You then retrieve. Or maybe it is. I know. Again, sometimes I wonder if it is a typo. It sounds weird to me, but I don't know. Anyway. You then retrieve the leather-bound book which is resting upon her bedside table and spread it open. The pages of the book are very brittle, like the princess said, and the bindings of the book are loose. You feel in the heft of the book's manifold pages the weight of the ages concealed within it. How old is this book? Perhaps it is as old as the castle in which it resides. It's funny, like in the stock image, it looks like the letters are printed. I don't know, when was the printing press invented? Printing press. Invention? Date? When was it invented? Yeah, apparently, it did exist as early as the Renaissance, actually. Huh. I didn't know that. So I guess it wasn't like, it wasn't as prominent as it was in the industrial area, obviously. It is with a quiet voice, hesitant at first, they begin to read to the princess, a tale of courtly love which culminates in a lavish wedding ceremony. All the while, as you read, the princess listens to you, enraptured, hanging, or so it seems, upon your every word. Once you reach the final phrase embossed upon the pages of this aged tome, and they lived happily ever after. The princess sighs as though this tale has touched her very soul. Well, there was a handsome prince to marry me, she says somberly, or better yet, a beautiful princess. At this point, I think I would even settle for a lowly scullery maid. I guess she's just, playing for both sides. You blush at this idle remark and mumble, softly, that this would not be proper. The storm outside is still squalling, and you have never been one to raise your voice. You do not expect, therefore, that the princess will overhear you, but she does. She observes you, her head resting against her pillows, and says, "And what will be the problem with that, As my maid, should my happiness come before any silly ideas of propriety? Propriety? Well, of course, you reply, but for a princess to marry a scullery maid." You still hung up about that? The princess titters. Don't pay it too much heed, I'm just talking to myself. As if anything like that would ever happen, and there's no priest around who would officiate it. Yorokobe. Shoujo. You think there are greater issues with the princess's plan than the lack of a priest, though she does present a good point. The castle is an empty one. Even if the princess were to find somebody that she loves, there would be nobody there to make a wedding official. or to make such a wedding official. You cannot help but feel like you avoided a good deal of nuisance. But by the same token, do you not feel a touch disappointed? Well, never mind. That was a nice story, the princess says, but I'm not sleepy yet, and it's still storming outside. Won't you read me one more? You will not mind, you reply, but it is getting late. You really ought to return to your own chamber. I know, but can't you find in your heart to read one story to me? Just one? You can choose a short one, I won't complain. You have some doubts about that, but as before, you cannot resist the princess's demands. It is not, you think, because she is a princess, though that is of course a part of it, but because she is, well, radiant. Will not, do you think, as you turn to the next story recounting this age compendium, want to upset her? You rather cut your own tongue. Cut it off. Splash. You read another story to the princess, which is of a similar vein to the last one. Impossible adventures culminating at their close in a happy marriage. This tale delights the princess just as much as the tale you read prior, and she begs for another, and then another. One bedroom story soon becomes 5, and even then, when the candles which flicker on the princess's bedside are so close to guttering out, the princess is not satisfied. It's actually very relatable. This happens a lot to me. I always... Sometimes when I'm kind of like, have nothing to do, it's like it's evening, I'm like done with everything. I'm like, you know what? I think I'll read some manga, because I do that occasionally. It's I don't know, I feel like it's less commitment than like anime to me. So I read manga, But then suddenly I'm like, oh, look at this manga. Because I have such a giant backlog. Like I find some like an interesting manga series, and then it's like, and then I read it and it's like, oh wow, this is an interesting premise, and I read it some more and wow, okay, this is interesting, and I read it, and suddenly I binge the entire series, and suddenly it's like the sun is up. It's like I do that occasionally. It's really bad because I don't get any sleep. Like I need to go work the next day or something. I don't know. It's very addicting. But sometimes I do that. Sometimes I just binge read an entire manga series. And on the flip side, I never want to read any manga that's not like finished. I guess the ones that are like being translated or whatever. I don't know, because I always think it's gonna end on a cliffhanger, so I always read ones that are actually completed. Then I end up just reading too much of it. I can't stop myself because I want to know what happens next. It's like it's the entire thing. Anyway, but yeah. So yeah, read so much stories, and then, like a grasping, greedy child, she's never heard of moderation. When she wants something, she seeks to glut herself with it. Her only request is that of more. If you're less comely, perhaps your inability to adhere to the word no would be seen as a character defect. The princess is very comely, however, and so when she makes her next request, you almost agree offhand, without considering the ramifications. I think I could go to sleep now, but the storm is still raging. I feel lonely on my own in this big empty bed, so... I know. The princess's eyes light up like the night sky in a thunderstorm. Why don't you sleep with me? There's no, nothing weird about that at all. It's just, sleep, like literally sleeping, as in, cuddling, that's all. You stare at the princess, your eyes wide as goose eggs. Slowly, you blink. Then, just as slowly, you bid her repeat herself. Didn't you hear me? The princess giggles. Maybe you've been so busy cleaning up after me, you've neglected to clean out your own ears. I said, dear one, would you like to sleep with me? If that's a question she truly means to ask, then it's easy enough to answer. Of course you would like to sleep with her, it would be an honor. But would it be really alright for you to accept such an invitation? It must be a gross breach of protocol, surely, for a lowly domestic such as yourself to share a bed with a princess, which is funny because considering that the main character is actually of noble blood, she's so convinced herself that she's actually a peasant at this point. You sit upon the princess's bedside, fretting while she observes with wide beseeching eyes. She's waiting. Well, what's the matter, day one? Why do you tarry so? Could it be? The princess's lower lip begins to tremble. That you don't want to lie with me after all. The sorrow presented the princess's voice and her face makes you feel awfully guilty. Thirdly, you console her. You tell her in no uncertain terms that if she truly wishes to partake in your company, they have no qualms with it. Why would you? Well then, don't just stand there dilly-dallying, silly. Come and join me, come! And that's what you do. After returning briefly to your own chamber to change your nightgown, once dressed, you waste no time returning to your impetuous princess's side. She's already lying in her glorious four-poster bed, awaiting your return as though you're a knight errant gone away to slay some wicked dragon. The princess giggles when she sees you. In your haste to change, you mid a hash of the buttons, and she bids you to come closer. Well, let me fix that for you, silly. Oh no, you say, I couldn't possibly let you do that. I'm but a servant after all. Should it not be your job to dress her? Maybe so, the princess says, but I don't mind a bit of role reversal. Role reversal, eh? It makes things more fun. They try a few more refutations, but in vain. The princess summarily discards all of them. Quite of the princess's mercy, she might be even more stubborn than you are. You capitulate to her demands. You let the princess unbutton the front of your nightdress, then rebutton them, so the fabric of your plain gown is drawn shut. Satisfied with her handiwork, his very elegant hands, the princess draws back and pats the mattress beside her. Now come in. It must be horribly cold there, but these sheets are so warm. Coyly, the princess smiles. And so am I. You feel warm yourself as you slide into the bed beside the princess. Your face is red as the gown the princess so often wears, as red as the roses in the castle's grounds. All the while, your heart is fluttering. Does the princess know what an effect she is having on you? Surely she must. How could any woman be so blind? There, the princess exclaims once your body is lying beside hers. That is much better. You feel cozy now, dear one. You swallow in with a shaky voice you reassure her. Yes, you are cozy. You're quite cozy indeed. Very good. The storm might be raging outdoors, but it can't get us here. I know when I'm reading this wrong. The storm might be raging outdoors, but it can't get us here. I know when I'm with you, I'll be safe. It's strange, but... The princess reaches out and then takes your hand in hers, twining your fingers together like a chain. When I'm with you, I feel so very light, as though nothing in the world can hurt me. You make me feel safe, so I want to make you feel safe too. I'll take very, very good care of you, I promise. You return her smile with one of your own, touched by her thoughtfulness, though something about her promise does make you wonder. Should it not be your job to look after her as a domestic? In a way, Princess replies after a pause. But you've been taking good care of me already. Now I need to return the favor. As a princess, I'm supposed to look after my vassals. It's all part of the job description. You're unaware that being a princess came with a job description. You thought the profession came with far fewer written responsibilities and far fewer forms to sign than, say, becoming a doctor or an astrophysicist or a mathematics professor. Tell the princess this, sleepily, and she laughs. You do say some funny things, dear one. I think you must be tired. Rest your head. You've been working so hard. I think you deserve it. Yes, you think. Only half conscious, you think you deserve it too. You've been working hard for a long time, have been running for even longer, but now at long last, you feel like you can let your fears go. Your eyelids begin to droop, and your body beleaguered. I said that word before, but is it correct? Beleaguered Legends?
Beleaguered.
Beleaguered. Yeah, it is just beleaguered. I don't know. It just sounds weird to me. Beleaguered. Even though, I mean, it's like this, just, you know, that's the funny thing in the English language. You know, sometimes you read it as it is, as it looks like. Sometimes you don't, you know, because it's like borrowed words from another language or something. I don't know, anyway. But yeah, your eyelids begin to droop, your body beleaguered by a sudden all-consuming fatigue. And in a quiet, understated sort of way, your consciousness is conveyed to Morpheus's kingdom. And this is when things go wrong, by the way. I feel like we're getting close to the part. Well, I guess we'll see. Your sleep is a deep one, despite the storm which rages outdoors. The wind is howling like a couple of wild cats, both locked in a vicious and bloodthirsty bout to the death, but you do not hear it. Swaddled by the warm blankets about you, and soothed by the princess's presence, you're immune from all the ills of the world. When you're with the princess, you feel safe, secure, and protected. Like SCP. No, yes, you even feel loved. And that's when they get you. It is a pity, then, that these feelings do not last for very long. Oh boy. Now this, as I was saying, now this is the part that we've been waiting for, You know that something is wrong, catastrophically so. I can't say that for some reason. Catastrophically so, the moment you open your eyes. Your thoughts are hopelessly jumbled, but you're certain that when you fell asleep, it was in a bed. A nice warm bed, no less, beneath soft, comfortable sheets. You're not lying in bed right now, though. You're not, in fact, lying at all. Instead, you're hanging around a bunch of spooky, scary skeletons. Yes. You're standing instead against a cold, hard wall made of stone. The curve of your back is pressed against the wall so intimately, you can feel its icy chill seeping through the fabric of your nightgown. Your feet, which are bare, are similarly pressed against cold, unfeeling stone. The one is funny that skeleton in particular is wearing like a apron, I guess. And maybe this one too. It's hard to see that one, but I guess. I mean, you can take a guess who these skeletons are, but anyway. You feel so frigid you cannot help but tremble. You're trembling so much, you can feel your teeth chattering together. They sound like castanets. The sound is almost as jaunty as it echoes through your cell, for that is indeed where you are. The princess's bedchamber, where you fell asleep, is a thing now of the past. You're standing instead, you realize, with a sharp start, in the cell of some great underground dungeon. You swallow, and when you do, you can taste something bitter on your tongue. Your stomach is beginning to churn of anxiety. You feel like you're going to be sick, a feeling which wells up inside of you to a staggering degree when you catch notice of the stench. You're not, you realize, the only one in the dungeon. We did mention in the beginning something about a dungeon. There are others here, others attired in the simple black and white outfits of servants, which look much like the dress that you once wore. The others who are with you, however, in this expansive cell, manacled to the walls, are in no fit state to speak to you, nor to tell you of their plights. They're all unfeeling, unseeing and unbreathing. They are all dead. You cannot approach these servants to check their pulses, for you yourself are strained, but even if you could, there'd be no point. Like, seriously, there'd be no point. They're freaking skeletons. They're all bones. I was gonna say skin and bones, but there is not even skin. It's just bones. There's no way any human could survive the wounds which have been inflicted upon these sad, slumped bodies. Over there you see a woman slumped, the front of her once white apron stained with blackish blood. There's a gaping wound in her stomach, one through which her entrails have half escaped, in some sort of burgundy goop, which might have once been pale pink. There's another woman, slumped beside the first of a smaller stature. She is skinnier. Maybe she's not a woman after all, but an adolescent like yourself. She might even be younger. The girl's age or lack of did not preclude her attack from inflicting upon her horrors. Alas, for her body is even more mutilated than the first. Her body is peppered with even more wheals, and her face has been half smashed in. Only one eye remains, staring fixedly at the wall opposite her, and the winner remains of what was once her skull. Tongue twister. What was once her skull. And over there, you see a woman who is missing both her arms and her lower jaw. And over there, you see another who's missing her entire lower half. Where have her legs gone? You have no idea. The injuries inflicted upon these bodies are ghastly, but their advanced decay is enough to turn your stomach. You know not how long these carcasses have been lying down here, but they've begun to putrefy. You fear a similar fate might befall you, should you stay here. Okay, it's funny. Okay, I think, I don't know, I guess the descriptions are actually describing the corpses that are less lot, a lot less bony that you see here in the CG. I feel like I don't know. There's a bit of a dissonance in the narrative and the actual like image, but I guess what they're describing is actually a lot gorier, than what you see here. I'm actually disappointed, but you know me. I read, I read like Frankenfran, for breakfast. So, like, I'm used to like advanced amounts of gore. I'm like disappointed there isn't that isn't visualized. But anyway, you need to escape. Fifthly, you struggle against the manacles which bind you, but alas, it's no use. You cannot free yourself from the walls. Your restraints are much too strong, and you're much too weak. Panic rises up in your throat, cold and icy, while terror seizes your heart. This too glacial. It is obvious that escape is impossible, but still you squirm and writhe, like a rat caught in a firestorm. There is little point, however, to your struggles. You succeed in nothing, as you attempt to free yourself, save making the steel manacles dig into your abused wrists more sharply than ever. Manacles? Yeah. You gasp. That hurts. Well, you guys have known that would not work. The very definition of insanity is, performing a set action over and over again, hoping for a different response, even though I think that's also, I think that's, what's the word? That's a misnomer, I feel like that's a misquote. I'm not sure. Anyway, in that sense, perhaps one could argue optimism is not so very different from insanity. Now that's an interesting point to consider. Would you not agree? No, evidently not. You're still trying to escape, you foolish girl, as if that will do you any good. The clangorous rattling of your steely restraints is rather starting to get on my nerves. You're making enough noise to raise the dead down there in your dark, dingy cell, and your screaming is hardly helping matters. I wish you would cease this infernal racket, but I know you will not. Nothing I say could ever get through to you, because I'm just a narrator. Not that you've ever listened to me in the first place. Perhaps you will listen to her, though. Is she not your kind, considerate mistress? Look now. She's come all this way into the dark depths of the castle's cold and inhospitable dungeon to see you. Is that not kind of her? Oh, dear one, the princess trills, entering the dungeon with a series of light, lilting steps. It would seem like you have finally awoken. How are you? Based on all that infernal racket you've been making, it will seem like you have no shortage of energy. Balefully, you turn your head, so as to meet the eyes of the princess. She is standing but a few paces away, beneath the roughly hewn stone arch, which bids one entry, but rarely ever an exit to the dungeons. The dungeons are dull and drab, but the princess is wearing her favorite red dress. It's so bright and brilliant that for a few moments, it hurts you to look at her. Once the red of the princess's outfit made you think of romance. Now it makes you think of violence. Blood. Blood for the blood god. Skulls for the skull throne. You must forgive me for leaving you down here for so long. That was unfair of me. I did think of waiting here with you by your side until you awoke, but... Once again, the princess giggles, a light airy giggle which does not at all suit the situation in which you have found yourself. A dungeon is not a fit place after all for a princess. It's horribly cold here and so very drab. And there's nowhere nice and soft to lay my head. I could have brought my pillows down from my bed, I suppose, and my blankets. But then they would have gone dirty, and that would be a disaster. I need to be more careful. I won't have anybody left to clean up after my messes soon, not when I've dispatched of you. Once again the princess laughs. Her laughter is light and lilting, like a chiming of a silvery bell, but it does little to alleviate your concern. If anything, it makes you feel even more alarmed. Did she say she meant to dispatch of you? Yes, that's right. Could you not tell? I thought you might have figured that out already after waking up in the dungeon, silly. Still smiling, the princess takes another step towards you. Would that you could, you would cringe away from her. From the cringe. You would cringe so hard. No, you would cringe away from her, but you cannot. You are completely powerless. The princess reaches out and places a hand upon your cheek. Her skin is very white, and though her touch is cool, it is less so than the frigid air in the dungeon. Though your body is aching, the princess's touch is gentle, and you find yourself leaning into it subconsciously. You wish she would keep holding you. You wish she would keep touching you. You luxuriate in her kindness as best you can. Although the princess's caresses are tender, your circumstances rather undermine them. How can you relax like this? You're such a good girl, the princess says in a cajoling sort of voice, as one might address a cat. You've been so lovely to me while we've been together. I really couldn't ask for a better servant. I feel as though I've been spoiled. Why then, you ask? Is she doing this? Every time, every time. Why are you freaking doing this? And they always give a nonsensical answer. Improbable though it sounds, she must be the one who changed you up. There's nobody else in the castle who could have committed such a feat. Everybody else is dead. Why yes, how very astute of you. I was the one who orchestrated all of this naturally. Naturally, she says, as though her betrayal is a matter of course. Naturally. Why, you ask, is this so natural to her? What does she mean to do of you? Oh, only what I've done to all of my other servants. I have experience with this sort of thing, so please don't worry. I'll take good care of you. And by take good care of, she means, naturally, I'll kill you. There it is again, that word which seems grossly inappropriate given all which has transpired. Naturally. There's nothing natural about this. Do you not think so? The princess examines you, her expression ponderous. It's natural to me. Even if it isn't natural to other people, this just feels right. Imprisoning her servants in the dungeon and letting them die? Yes, exactly. There's a bit more to it than that, though. Oh, of course there is. I like you, dear one, the princess says in a voice which sounds uncommonly serious. You have been good to me, like I said, and kind. For that I will be eternally appreciative. You've been so good to me, in fact, that simply being with you is not enough. Not anymore. Your company can no longer content me. I'm a greedy, selfish girl, you see. The princess's smile widens to something sinister, her eyes flashing a fiendish fervor you have never before witnessed. And I don't want to feel you beside me. I want to feel you inside me. What? Okay. I mean, there are other ways to do this, Can't you just have sex normally? Anyway. Well, of all the things your charming captive could have said, you do not expect that. The princess, perhaps noticing confusion, begins to giggle even lighter than meringue. I think that's a type of wine, is it? How do you pronounce that? I think I saw that. Oh, no, it's not wine. It's a type of sweet food, actually. Okay. Meringue. Okay. Maybe I mixed it up with something else. Anyway, but yeah. A giggle even lighter than meringue, and just as airy. Yes, a type of snack food, apparently. A type of sweet. It is just as inoffensive. I can see that you don't understand, dear one, but you aren't the only one. My last lady's maid said that too. Wanly, the princess sighs. A beleaguered woe is me sigh, which makes her even look younger than the scant handful of years she truly possesses. And the one before that, and the one before that, and the one before that. I thought that you, at least, might be able to appreciate my point of view, but perhaps not. I don't think it should be too complicated to grasp, really. But maybe my way of looking at the world is a little bit unique. That's what my nurse always used to say, at least when she still had the breath to speak, of course. You look at the princess, where else is there for you to look, really? Your eyes are fixed to her face. She's still smiling, but there's something sinister about her smile. And perhaps in your anxious state, you're only imagining that there's something sinister about her smile. It's easy to see things which do not really exist when your surroundings are festooned in the shadows. In actuality, however, the princess does not look any different to how she usually does. Neither is she acting any differently to the way she usually acts. She's not changed. It is only your perspective of her that has changed. Tremulously, you ask the princess to what she means, a question the princess is only too happy to answer. It's simple, really. Like I said, you are wondering, weren't you, why there were any guards or any servants in the castle when you first arrived here? The question that crossed your mind, yes. You're sure the princess said her ministers sent them away, though. Was that a lie? I wasn't being wholly truthful, no. I thought you'd be afraid of me if you knew what had actually happened, and I didn't want that. I wanted you to stay with me. My ministers didn't send anybody away because I don't have any ministers. I dispatched them too. Is she now? You suppose you ought not to be surprised, but you still shudder regardless. My ministers weren't very much fun, I'm afraid. They had a lot of ideas of what I should and shouldn't do after my parents died. The princess stares at you, her eyes wide like black holes, empty, yawning abysses. So I killed them. I killed my servants too, though I did a more thorough job of them than my ministers. You know, how do you do that? You know? One person just killed all of them? She's very good at killing, I guess. I did not care for my ministers, you see. They were all fussy old men, but I did love my servants. I loved my ladies' maids, and my undermaids, and my scullery maids, and my housekeeper, and my cooks, and my large retinue of retainers. They were like my family. They raised me in my parents' absence, and I adored them. They were so very dear to me that I had no real choice. I had to eat them. Ah, yes. By the way, that's what she meant by, like, you know, having her inside her, I guess, or having the main character inside her, by the way. You know, I guess she can't scissor like normal people. Anyway, does that follow? Not logically, no. Why, you ask the princess, your voice trembling, would you eat the people that you love? It seems a poor way to repay them for their kindness. Well, why wouldn't you eat the people that you love? I don't think there could be any greater way of showcasing one's gratitude, unless you have any better ideas. What is this thing? Oh, like Karma Sutra. No, you weren't expecting the princess to turn the tables on you quite like this, and dumbfounded you stare at her. You know precious little about love yourself, so it's hard for you to form a convincing rebuttal, but you muster up a few tokenistic arguments. You tell the princess that eating people isn't very nice, and neither is it strictly legal. A better way to show your gratitude to your servants would be with increased wages, or increased holidays, you know, just be like a good employer. Do servants even have wages back then? I don't know. The princess listens to your arguments, her expression astute, like a student poised to take notes in a very important lecture. Once you're finished, however, her concentration fails her. Her shoulders begin to shake, but it's not a remorse of what she has done. Instead, she is laughing. Oh, dear one. That's very funny, but why should I care about the law? I'm a princess. One day I'll be the queen. I am the law. I am RoboCop. That is a good point, but would eating people not turn her subjects against her? What subjects? I'm no fool, you know. No matter how I might act, I know what happens beyond the castle's walls. I know all about the plague. Once, I might have had a populace to govern, but they're all gone now. I'm a princess in nothing but name only, a monarch without any subjects. Don't you think that's sad? I know I do. It's so woefully lonely. If she feels lonely, then why has she been systematically slaughtering all her domestics? It doesn't make a lick of sense. Perhaps not to you. Gently, the princess caresses her cheek. But I shouldn't judge you too harshly. As much as I like you, dear one, you are a commoner. Perhaps you can't understand the intricacies of my thoughts. Privately, you doubt that anybody would be able to understand the intricacies of the princess's thought process, largely because it is unreasonable. Also, she does mention the plague, by the way, so okay. Again, that kind of ties in with the village as well. All crazy, you know. No, all these girls are crazy. You don't say that though. Instead, you ask her the only question you can think to ask, with your weary throat which is sore from shouting. Why? Why, you ask? The princess blinks. It's because I don't want you to leave me, of course. Everybody leaves sooner or later. Whether they pledge their allegiance to me or not, that is simply the way of the world. People are fickle and inconstant, even to me, a monarch. That is why I decided to eat my servants. I had no choice, you see. It was the only way to ensure they would never leave me. You know, they'll be in my stomach until I poop them. You know, I absorb their nutrients into my body, and therefore they are a part of me, you see. You know, that's how it works. But when you think about it, they should be grateful that I would demean myself so to consume their flesh and blood. I am a magnanimous ruler, you see, and I treat all my subjects equally, as a stew. And I love every single one of you. And naturally, I love you too. You've been awfully nice to me, and you are very pretty alongside it. If you're a plain ugly girl, perhaps I will not shower you with affection quite as intense as this. But you've captured my heart. I think you're lovely, and so I'll bestow upon you the highest honor I can conceive of. I want your body to mix with mine, and then we can stay together forever and ever. The princess leans in. You feel her soft silken hair brushing against your cheeks. Can feel too the warmth of her breath as it gushes against your skin. It is cold in the dungeon, but the princess's close proximity is, perverse though this might sound, something of a comfort. Her eyes are wide, her lips are so red. Her smile, meanwhile, is so sweet. I've been doing my best to fulfill the role that fate has dictated for me, but really. The princess exhales. Her eyes, which are boring into yours, are like two dark tarns. Finally, you think you can see an alarming lack of light, a lack of anything, in the princess's gaze some degree of humanity. It gets so lonely here. With this brief flicker of understanding, which passes between the pair of you, soon cut short. The princess dips her head. She parts her lips, which are as red as the petals of a carnivorous flower. You feel the princess's breath against your neck. It is warm in the icy chill of the dungeons, and you shudder from it. For a few moments, you think that this overture of the princess could be romantic in a way, but this too comes to a swift, merciless close. Numb. It's just like apple crunching sound effect. Really? Numb. Also eating, I mean, I don't know, like, just in general, cannibalism. Doesn't that, like, give you, like, some kind of disease? I don't know, I'm not sure. Then again, there are, it's been historically been recorded that people who have ate other people, they have survived. Again, I'm reminded of that cannibalism guy that I don't know if he was a serial killer, but there was a guy who killed someone and then ate someone in Paris. Like, I think it's a Japanese person. I think he ate someone when he was abroad in Paris, and then I mentioned this like a couple times already, but like there was kind of a legal loophole, and then therefore he never actually went to prison, and so there was a lot of like coverage of that, and he even like consented to like a bunch of like shows about him, about this crazy dude who ate somebody, and people like basically exploited him. But of course, I don't know if you feel any sympathy for the guy, because he's literally murdered someone and ate someone, but but like he sold his like his fame and then made a lot of money, so like as it turns out, being a cannibal can be profitable. As long as you don't go to prison, I guess, but but I don't think he lived a good life, however. I think eventually, I'm not sure if he's still alive, but I think eventually he grew old and everything, but I don't think he lived a very good life. He lived kind of like a sad life, actually, as far as I remember, from like a documentary. Anyway, the princess's mouth is on your neck. The princess's teeth, sharp as needles, are in your flesh. The princess is draining your blood. Just like a vampire, remember? She is supping on it in great greedy gobbets, like a hungry animal, one who cannot truly comprehend the harm it is causing. She's not gonna cook you, she's just gonna eat you right there and then. What? Even as the princess sups from you, her arm is twined around your waist, you find you cannot hate her. She is far too unworldly. You are sure, as your consciousness begins to fade, that the princess was being sincere when she spoke of her love for her past servants. This is simply the way the princess expresses the great love of hers, a love which is very abundant. It borders upon the monstrous. It is a love you never thought you would never experience. It's basically kind of like Vor in a way. Anyway, this love of the princess eclipses anything you have ever known before. it eclipses sanity, you know? She just has a crazy fetish. Crazy vor fetish, I guess, basically. It eclipses reason. It eclipses all notions you might once have had of right or wrong. The princess, as you know full well, does not care about such concepts. You have always possessed a stubborn core, nestled beneath your weak-willed exterior, but the princess is even stubborner than you are. In the face of her love, you have met your match. The princess draws back. Desperately, you gasp for air, but she does not give you any quarter. As before, she dips her head, her red lips redder still with your blood, then splits apart her jaw. Her teeth, which are impossibly, inhumanely sharp, glint wickedly like knives. Then she tears out your throat, numb. The front of your nightgown was white once. Now it is red. There's so much blood you can smell it when you inhale, sharper than metal. It is so potent you can taste it in your tongue. You try to inhale, but this task proves to be beyond you, one of your twin perforations that rupture your skin. I think I pronounced that correctly. Your attempted breaths, when they escape your lips, sound like sad, sorry wheezes. Your whole body, meanwhile, feels as though it's on fire. You make for quite the sorry sight indeed, but you'll forgive me if my sympathy is limited. You did bring this upon yourself, you know, being eaten alive, I guess. You reap what you sow, and in your case, you made a series of bad decisions which led to your untimely demise. Now, what do you want to do? Will you accept this fate of yours and rest in peace, or will you try to fight against it? Well, first I'm gonna save again. Save the game. No, here we go again. There are many, many wacky ways to die in this visual novel, but I guess we'll just be eaten. You know? Like an animal, really, you know? This is how animals... This is how, like, predators eat other animals in nature. They just freaking rip out their throat and just eat them. What? Really? You're fine with being eaten alive in the dark, dingy dungeon than being left to rot? That does not sound like a very satisfying ending to this particular narrative, but if that's what you want, then so be it. I do not mind indulging you. That's what I've always done, after all, from the moment we first met. I've dedicated myself tirelessly to answering your wishes, and this is no different. Do not be so foolish to think, though, that you can escape me, even if your life's blood had mingled with that of the princess's. I'm not alone going to relinquish my hold upon you that easily. I did pledge, after all, to remain by your side, come what will, fire or flood. I will never leave you. You'll never be lonely again. Alright, and so the game, kind of loops back to the main menu ominously. If you accept your fate, it's always the same thing, but I just want to check out the dialogue anyway. Alright, and so we can simply fight against our fate. Doesn't do much, whether we drown to death, get buried, and then left to die, or, being eaten, even if we fight against our fate, doesn't mean much. It just means we go back to the pathway, but, well, I guess we'll see what happens. That is a good answer. I must admit, I like it. It's impressive how very defiant you can be, even in situations as discomforting as this. Now, try not to cry. Keep your chin up. This is but a minor setback in your story. Like all fair maidens, you're deserving your own happy ending. You need only the strength to try and seek it out. Why don't we give this another go? Just try not to ensnare the hearts of any more monarchs, particularly those of unusual appetites. You're destined for far higher purposes than being an entree, and there are vastly more enjoyable ways to be eaten in this world. I don't know what you mean by that, narrator. Your fate is once again in your hands. Now I wonder, which path will you take? I guess we'll see. We've actually taken all of the paths. What path is there even left to take? Well, let's see. Oh, okay. Just give up. Okay. All right. Okay.